Good morning, y'all. I don't usually do this in videos, but I wanted to switch it up and kind of start being a little more dynamic with what I do. So, we're out here in Bushnell. It's about 6:20 in the morning, and we got a green northbound signal. I just checked out the north end of the Bushnell siding. We got a green, so we probably have a green right behind me at the south end switch. We're right near the Sumter County Historical Museum, which I don't think is ever actually open. I'm guessing this could be 452 or 442, because it's kind of early for 452, because he's usually out of Lakeland, or he's usually out of Lakeland around now, so he wouldn't be here already, but not too sure. But we're gonna set up here and I guess see who it is. At 6:30 in the morning, downtown Bushnell is pretty quiet, except the occasional truck or car passing on US 301. Most of the population is asleep, so it makes it pretty peaceful to set up and wait for trains, especially during these kind of hours. Setting up near the south end of the Bushnell siding, I'd hear in my scanner this incoming northbound, who I thought was 452 or 442, but I couldn't quite hear his train ID, so I had no clue who he was, but he was getting pretty close, calling the signals a Ridge Manor, Rodell, and eventually St. Catherine. The moon was still high up in the sky before this guy would arrive, which was a pretty cool sight. And eventually, I'd soon hear a train horn in the distance announcing the arrival of my first northbound train and my first train for the day, CSX B22517, northbound loaded phosphate from Mulberry bound for Cicero, Illinois for the BNSF, featuring a Canadian Pacific AC-44 in the middle, which is a pretty cool touch.
2570, 137 express,
Well, it's just after 7 a.m. We had that northbound B225 about 30 minutes ago. I just went to check the southbound signals and they're currently red, and I believe the northbound signals are also red. I'm guessing the next train to go up through here would be M457. There should also be an M452 at some point, and I'm not sure if you can see, but there's a birthday cake right there. I don't know why, but yeah, there's a birthday cake there, so we're just sitting here. The sun's starting to come up, but it looks a little cloudy and there's some fog off to the north. But hopefully by the time that whoever shows up, either 4:57 or 4:52 or something else, hopefully by then the sun's actually properly up. But we're going to be staying here at least until M453. Then I'll probably chase them down south, do the usual chasing route, and then I want to catch something at Lacoochee, because I haven't gotten a train there yet, so I'll probably try to get M604 there, and depending on work, I could be out all day, but we'll see. I don't think I'll be out for IO44, but we'll see what we can see in that amount of time. So yeah, sit here at the south end of Bushnell, and I guess we'll see what comes up next. While waiting for the next train to eventually show up, which wouldn't be until almost 8:30, I'd take the G85 out of the truck and get some B-roll shots of downtown Bushnell with this perfect temperature, almost 68 degrees, and a really pretty sunrise that would soon happen. As a lot of you know, and as a lot of my friends know, Bushnell is one of my favorite places to railfan on the S-Line, and a place I go to a lot. And with my truck's recent kind of condition, I guess you could say, I haven't been able to go super far, so Bushnell has been my default for the past few S-Line trips. These shots you're about to see are just some of the reasons why Bushnell is kind of special to me. I don't know why. I think the downtown is nice, the people there are nice, and you'll see the same trains here that you'll see anywhere else on the S-Line, so it doesn't really matter to me. Anyways, enjoy some B-roll shots I got of downtown Bushnell as we wait for our next train to arrive. In due time, after getting these B-roll shots, my next train would finally arrive, being CSX M457, southbound mixed train from Waycross, Georgia to Taft Yard near Orlando, with an ES40 in the lead with some pretty faded letters and numbers. Another 2 hours would pass before my next train would go through here, which would be CSX M452, northbound manifest from Hialeah Yard near Miami up to Waycross, Georgia. I set my camera up pretty low on the tripod facing southbound to catch him coming north around the curve with the good morning light, and in a few moments, he'd soon arrive with an ES40 DC and YN2 AC44 in the lead, the ES40 featuring a very nice first generation Nathan K5HL. It'd be until almost noon before my next train would show up, which would be CSX L729-19. Northbound Rock empties from Winston Yard up to Brown Sand, Georgia on the Fitzgerald sub. With an AC44 and CM44 in the lead, you'd have a relatively long train going pretty fast around the curve at the south end of Bushnell. Alrighty, so that was L729. Got a heads up from somebody who saw it on the Plant City Rail Cam. Which is surprising because the 729 doesn't usually go that way. We have an M453 who should be meeting 452 at Oxford. I think he was at Spar at, I think, 11:30. So he should be meeting 452 soon. He got some stuff from Wildwood. 452 is now 10,000 feet almost. And 453 has something pretty interesting trailing third. So we're gonna stay here in Bushnell, catch that 453. Then we're gonna move south to Lacoochee. We're gonna just go down to Lacoochee after 453. We're not gonna chase them because it's gonna be a backlit chase, and I don't really feel like pacing right now. So yeah, let's wait out this M453. Then we'll move down south, and don't know what we'll catch after that. I know 604, but yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. After almost an hour and a half of waiting, M453 would finally show up, passing a few of us here at Bushnell, with the Terminal Railroad Association SD40-2, number 3004, trailing third. I'd say goodbye to the other railroad fans who were here at Bushnell and make my way south to a new spot for me, the south end of Lacoochee Siding, just north of Dade City.
CSXT and 60419 engine CSXT 7326 has it clear at the distance of Lacoochee. Northbound out.
After about 30 minutes of waiting and meeting M453 down at Vitus Junction, M604 would meet me here at the south end of Lacoochee and would soon talk to the JA dispatch after reporting a problem on his train, and he'd have to stop a few miles north at Rodell to fix that problem.
CSX J dispatching him 60419 over.
6040.
What are you guys gonna plan on trying to inspect this car at?
We was gonna try to get up there around St. Catherine or Rodale.
Okay, alright. Y'all show a PNWX 10357 over.
Yes, sir, that's correct. 175D.
I'll figure between Ridgemont and St. Catherine for you guys checking the car.
All right, thank you.
That's it.
CSXTM 60419, engine CSXT 7326 has a clear the south end of Lacoochee, North Bushnell.
it would be decided that this huge 810 axle long M604 would stop just north of Ridge Manor to fix his defective car about 175 cars deep. In the meantime, I'd move north back to Bushnell to wait on him, as well as an incoming L743, the southbound counterpart to the L749 we saw earlier, being loaded rock for brown sand down the Winston. After passing me here, 743 would come to a stop in the Bushnell siding to wait on the incoming M604, who'd soon get a clear signal and would have his defective car fixed and would be back on the move northbound the Waycross. I'd catch him on the inside of the curve at Bushnell with the amazing afternoon lighting for one of my favorite shots of the whole day. Almost immediately after M604 cleared the south end switch, L743 would get his signal out of the siding to continue on south towards Winston, giving me my last catch of the day.
Clear. South of the Bushnell. That's Main. That's 40th Street.
After L743, I'd pack up my gear and head back home. There were still some trains on the S-line that I could have seen if I stayed a few more hours, but I had work that night and had to make it home in time to get some sleep, so I called it here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video on the CSX S-line going from Bushnell to Lacoochee and back. I still have some videos to work on featuring some Sunrail action, and I'll bring that to you guys soon. So, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.